Morning. Welcome to the new year, 2010, the January 4th Troy City Council meeting. And we ask that if you have a cell phone, electronic device, that you turn it off completely. It interferes with our sound system. We'd like to welcome our invocation this evening will be given by Pastor Bill Desrochers from the Calvary Chapel of Oakland County, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pastor.
Mayor Schilling, council members, may we bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, I stand before you on behalf of these men and women who have given of themselves, Lord, to serve the citizens of Troy. And I ask, Lord, that you would be present here tonight as they make decisions concerning the city. And I pray, Lord, that you would give them wisdom from above. Lord, that they would be allowed to continue to provide protection and safety for the citizens, education for the children. Lord, that you would help them to manage the resources that have been given to them, Lord, for the infrastructure of the city. I pray, Heavenly Father, that in these tough economic times, Lord, that you would allow the possible to come from the impossible, Lord. And I pray that you would grant them, Lord, the ability, Lord, to do those things that you've called them to do. And I pray, Lord, that they would see new avenues tonight, Lord, to fulfill what they are trying to do for the city. So I pray, Lord, that for your very presence here, and that you would grant and guide them in all that they plan to do tonight. In Jesus' holy and precious name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, for being here. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Here.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Here.
Fleming? Hauerlack?
Here.
Kerwin?
Here.
McGinnis?
Here.
Slater?
Here.
Quorum present.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Beltramini?
I would move to excuse Councilmember Fleming as he is out of the state.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we excuse Councilman Wade Fleming for being out of the state, out of the county.
And that would apply to both
The meeting and
a closed session should we have one.
if we have one. Okay, thank you. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Hauerlack?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. This evening, we have no certificates of recognition or carryover items, and there is no public hearing. So our first item of business will be our public comment area. And I remind you folks that that public comment for 5 minutes can be on a postponed, regular business, or consent agenda item, or it may be on an item that is not on the agenda. So I will go by the names of those that signed up first, and a first person to call up will be Dave Henderson. Is Dave Henderson present? Good evening.
Thank you, Council. I'm not a great speaker, so I'm going to read this if you don't mind.
Oh, you're fine. Feel free to adjust the mic, however, there.
I'm a lifelong resident of Troy. I graduated from Troy schools. My father was an educator in Troy that retired in 1979. And I'm proud to say I've worked for Troy companies practically my entire life. I'm a resident, past Troy business owner, and currently a contract employee for a Troy business. At one time or another, I've had both the opportunity and or the misfortune to have used many of the Troy services. I love our city. That said, I'm bothered at the way the proposed tax increase is being sold to the people of Troy. The methods of educating us are deceiving. I'm also concerned that the city is just now, after seeing there's opposition to the proposed max tax increase, they're looking at trimming their budgets. I'm sure there's plenty of excess that needs to be addressed. For the past 3 to 5 years, families, mine included, have had to make extremely difficult decisions for their family budgets. Corporate Troy has made costly and difficult decisions, but city management just now decides to make cuts, or better yet, disclose to us that life as we know it in Troy will end if we don't pass this huge tax increase. If council and management can't be honest to tell the people of the city how this is going to truly affect us, how are we supposed to believe when they ask for $9 million a year that it's really necessary? I was told by one council member that she's seen proof and believes it, but where's that proof? I say show us the numbers and the evidence of deep budget trimming and fiscal responsibility in a rotten economy, just like we've had to do, then come and sell your tax increase. You have the cart in front of the horse. After 3 days of emailing council members and city management, I finally understand an answer to one of my questions. Why are some on council saying this will cost $300 a year per household and others say $30 a year? When I first questioned it, I was faced with a short reply that it was in fact $30 with no real explanation. But after several emails digging for the truth, Robin Beltramini, just before Christmas, sent me an email showing the averages. And the average household will see a bump of $207 a year based on our current average SEV for fiscal year 09. Some results might be higher, some may be lower. Not the $30 per year Mrs. Beltramini originally told me in one of my early emails. $30 a year is based on a projected decrease in 2010's SEVs, and apparently the residents aren't entitled to a lower rate of property taxes in a largely declining real estate market. The city's entitled to it. And disguising that truth in the council's eyes is a better policy than full and complete disclosure, but that is in no way going to endear me or many others in the city to this tax increase. Finally, I'm thankful we didn't pay $41 million a couple years ago for an unnecessary Crooks Road exit, and who knows how much for a minor league baseball stadium. And do we really need a transit center costing the city millions this year when we can't afford a library, police, or community center? Or how about giving the county back 9 roads to clear since we lose money on that project, according to an article in the Troy Times? All of these things are horrible ideas that are and were going to cost Troy taxpayers millions, but were promoted by members of this council and this mayor. There are plenty of places to trim and cut costs. Those are just a few. I'm no city manager, but I've been involved in many budget discussions throughout the years. Make the difficult decisions, cut the budget, then ask for a millage increase after you prove how much you need and what it's for. No more blanket funding projects where no one is accountable, but we all have to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Janice Daniels.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. As a resident and a property owner in the city of Troy, a taxpayer and a proud Troy Colts hockey mom, I feel compelled to come again before you to express my opposition to this 29% city property tax increase that you are promoting. This is not the way that we need to balance our budget. We're not looking for the simplest way. We're looking for the fairest way, the most effective and the most efficient way. In my search for answers, I have studied the City of Troy website, and I noticed the State of the City address that was given on February 12th in 2009, in which, Mayor Schilling, you identified approximately 75 new business ventures that had either come into the city or expanded their operations or opened new restaurants, developing new residential communities or projects, condominium projects. And my questions with that regard is, first of all, where's the tax revenue from these new business ventures? Or did the city have to offer tax abatements to these companies in order to lure them into the city of Troy? And if so, have we got written contractual agreements where we're going to see guaranteed return on our investment, and at what point do we get the payback for these business ventures that have entered into the city? I've got a Freedom of Information request that I want to turn in this evening to that regard. I also am curious to know if these business owners were informed of the fact that 10 short months later, you were going to advocate an let's see, now I lost my word. Apocalyptic, it's a good word. That you were going to recommend an apocalyptic approach to the balancing of the budget by either increasing the city property taxes by 29% or threatening to close down the library, the community center, the historical museum, and the nature center. Moves which I think would adversely affect the very face of the city that we all love. And I just don't believe that it has to be such an either-or proposition. Also in the State of the City address, Mayor Schilling, you said that there are exciting new things that are about to happen in the city of Troy that will ensure that Troy will remain viable in a tough economic times. I'm wondering if this 29% city property tax increase is one of those exciting new ideas that you had, because I don't think it's exciting at all. I think it's rather disheartening. And if it's not, then what are these exciting new ideas that are coming into the city of Troy? That might be interesting for us to know about as well. In addition to that, the 29% city property tax is going to cost us approximately $345 a year, according to the Oakland County average tax, city tax portion, which is about $1,190 per year. If you increase that by 1.9 mils, it's going to cost us each $345 a year, not $38, which is the dollar amount that you advertise in that brochure. In closing, I also have received email communications from certain Troy Council members that have been in discussions with the Chamber of Commerce, where the president of the Chamber of Commerce, who, as you know, is not a resident of the city of Troy, has suggested that we form a blue ribbon panel of experts headed by a university president in an effort to suggest creative ways of balancing our budget. Excuse me. The city manager, with all due respect, and the city attorney combined compensation packages equal about $500,000 a year. And now we have to get a blue ribbon panel to suggest creative ways to balance the budget. This is unacceptable, and I will continue to voice my opposition, and I am pleased to see that other citizens are doing so likewise. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Marvin Reinhardt. Marvin Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mayor Schilling.
Good evening.
We had last time we had a meeting, Mayor Schilling and I had a long day. I didn't want to be accused of stalking, so I skipped that city meeting to give her some relief. But anyway, all the people that testified on my behalf was followed throughout the city of Troy till they left. Okay, I'm a non-role model, so my people do watch out for that stuff. Also, too, I'd like to thank Henry Allman, who single-handedly took a liquor license of downtown Pontiac and put it right downtown city of Troy in one lick. Hooters millions of dollars, but not Henry Allman's, buddy. One vote. Yeah, Henry, I can't concentrate on the mayor no more, but I can concentrate on anybody else, according to Judge Mester. You know, that's including you, Bob McDonald, the Tiffland man. You know, I remember what you used to do in high school, and you survived. I don't know how an E-man ran that company, okay? So that's the type of thing we're going to do this year. I'm going to find out the rats in this city. According to Judge Mayor, that's okay. And as far as draining the swamp, that's Nancy Pelosi's favorite thing. And as far as your Democrats go, I'm sure you like the drain the swamp theme, because that's what they do. Okay? And also, the school system last year that worked with the chamber, your friends, Ms. Hodges, by the way, David of American Bank of America, how come you hide behind the skirts of her? Ms. Hodges got enough problems already with the city trying to, like you said, blue ribbon panel, herself alone going to save us. You know, she lied a lot, and we're going to find that out, because Judge Mester said, if anybody in the city of Troy needs a FOIA in this city, he will help me write that FOIA and shepherd it through all these city departments, because he said it's easy to get a FOIA through Troy. Of course, he calls it 4 huts on a street corner, right, Mayor? And you sort of laughed. Me, I would have got upset. But, well, what the heck? You're just a ceremonial figure. But you do care about this city. And then, I'm sitting there figuring this out, and all of a sudden the name Newman came to my head. And you say, why Newman? That was somebody I had problems with long ago in this city. And sure enough, the address of the place, 5455 Corporate Drive. So if you don't think there's some personal stuff going on behind you guys' back, you guys are fooling around. So all I got to say to you this year, that because of Judge Mester's generosity, and then when I go up to the law department and say, I want to do something to the city of Troy, people jump out of their chairs wherever I go. They buy me beers. You know, if they can keep the city council awake, I get beers all over the city. So this is going to be a great time. And I'm up on YouTube, City of Troy, and see how many times that cop says that word. He says it about 20 times in a minute. I'm making money every time you guys click, 10 cents. So I'm making money, and vote yes for the city of Troy, because you will have to need that money to pay me off on my lawsuits. Have a happy year.
The next person to speak is Kathy Fuccineri.
Happy New Year to everyone. My husband and I have lived in the community for 33 years. We came here to raise our family. We've made friends, worked on many projects, and availed ourselves of the amenities available here. This community is an integral part of the fabric of our lives. We've developed a deep sense of understanding of the values, the character, and the integrity held dear by the members of this community. We recently completed the Citizens Academy with a group of 14 members of the community that represented demographic and ideological diversity that we enjoy here in Troy. We met with each department of the city. As a group, we were notorious in cross-examining each department's presentations, their methods, and running over the allotted time by hours each week. The entire group came away incredibly impressed with the efficiency and the creativity demonstrated across the board. I learned from Councilwoman Beltramini that Troy's had the lowest tax rate of any Southeast Michigan full-service community for over 20 years. Reading my tax bill shows that Troy taxes represent less than 27% of the property taxes we pay on our house. For that amount, we have nationally recognized departments providing us with both public safety and quality of life services. It's my understanding that this 1.9 mil will increase the taxes on the average home in Troy by $38 is the number I got. I've heard several different numbers tonight. Some will be more, some will be less, but the one thing that's sure is that the sky is not going to fall over $38 a year, or even $350. The sky is not going to fall. Unfortunately, there's a group who's using taxes contrary to the values we treasure here. We've recently seen the same type of negativity, misinformation, and in some cases outright untruths that were bandied about in the week leading up to the city council election in November. Councilman Fleming referred to these taxes at the November 9th council meeting and expressed his displeasure at the use of such methods. I'm very concerned about the damage this group is doing to our collective reputation. I'm here to appeal to the members of our community to not tolerate such methods. Insist on intelligent discussion of the issues. Discussions that are based on fact, not misinformation, innuendo, and fear. Let us collectively make a good decision for the city of Troy's future within the framework of character and integrity that we value, and give voice to that decision with our votes. Our family of 3 voters will support this proposed increase to retain both the quality of life and public safety services. We will vote yes on the ballot and strongly encourage our friends, our neighbors, and our colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
The next speaker is Gerard Stager.
Hi, Madam Mayor and members of council. I came to speak about the February 23rd election and to bring up 2 items. If you care about Troy, if Troy is important to you, you'll vote no on this election. This election will hurt our tax base. It will stop businesses from coming into Troy. It will make it harder to sell your house. It will cause people to leave Troy. This is what was done down in Detroit. They would raise taxes, see the tax base go down, and raise taxes. Here's one example in a problem also with the city of Troy. In the city of Troy, you can retire and still be in your 40s. Indeed, this matter came up with the searching for a city manager this year. John Zerleg was selected. John Zerleg started out this summer with a salary of $140,000 as reported in the Troy Times. Mr. Zerleg is not retired. Mr. Zerleg still works for the city of Troy, yet he gets a retirement pension benefit of $74,686 a year, according to the Troy Times. Think about this. If a man who is about 50 years old can retire and receive retirement benefits without retiring, between age 50 and age 65 would be 15 years at over $74,000 a year. Even if you only get a 2% rate of return, that would be $1.3 million. And that's just one employee. That would be half of one of the projected deficits in the city manager's report. Yet we never heard that from the city manager. He's not independent. He works for the city. We don't have anybody independent giving us figures. And this is demonstrated now on the Troy website. There's a new posting that came on December 23rd called Frequently Asked Questions. It was not submitted to the city council. It was not approved by the city council. Nobody who lives in Troy had a chance to comment on it. And it's a sloppy, unprofessional piece of work that embarrasses us here in Troy. It has, on page 2, a chart, and you can go to the website and look at it now. It was still on yesterday. It shows putbacks. Never says what a putback is, never labels what a putback is, and then lists putbacks for library, museum, nature center, and it gives a total of $1,585,000, which was correct. The next fiscal year, there are more putbacks not labeled, and the total is out by hundreds of thousands. The next year, ending June 30th, 2013, not that it's ever mentioned here when the city fiscal year ends, is out by millions of dollars. Then there is an item, question number 5, and it says on question number 5, and this one is correct, City Council has agreed to utilize some fund balance while maintaining an adequate reserve of 15% of the general fund budget. You click on option 1 in the frequently asked questions, you get a spreadsheet that does not show the 15% that the city council instructed the city manager to put down, but rather there's 18.1%, 19.3%, all the way up to 20.4%. It's misleading. It shows that there's not cash available because it's being shown as put into savings when it doesn't need to be put into savings, and the city council instructed the city manager to put it into savings. This is a sloppy, unprofessional piece of work. It wouldn't cut it in the private sector, yet it's on our website, and it should be removed as soon as possible. But more disturbing is, whoever prepared this report, it doesn't say. We don't know if it was the city manager, his department, or someone else. But no one gets to look at it beforehand. No one gets to approve it. No one gets to comment on it. We're losing control of the city, Madam Mayor. We, the people of Troy, run the city through our council. The city employees don't run it for us. We respect and value our city employees. They're entitled to good salaries, and they're entitled to good retirement benefits when they retire, not before. This millage increase will hurt our city. A good, responsible citizen will stand up and say, fix the budget, just like we have in the private sector. Fix the budget, just like we have with the automobile companies. Fix the budget and take a sacrifice like we did. Why are there gold-plated benefits for city officials? It's not negative, it's positive. It makes our cities better, and people need to pay attention and get involved, look at the numbers, and don't believe just everything that you're told. Again, Madam Mayor, this is a sloppy, unprofessional thing. I have to believe you didn't look at it, because if you looked at it, you wouldn't tolerate it. It's poorly prepared, it's poorly done, it makes Troy look bad. It should be removed from the website as soon as possible. There's too much of an effort to ram this big 29% property tax increase down us. It's a bad idea, and we need to clean up what we're doing in our city first, and that will help Troy much more than just another property tax increase. Thank you.
The next person who wishes to speak is Mary Ann Bernardi. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and Happy New Year, and welcome to the new members of Council. I'm here tonight to talk about some issues surrounding the tax proposal. First, we did ask you to move money from the capital fund to the general fund. excluding any money that was targeted for road repair, sewer repair, anything that's basic and is expected of city government. However, you failed to do that. I think there are several things that you did fail to do before coming to residents asking for more tax money, and this is one of them. In fact, one of the first votes of the new council was to postpone any decision about moving that money from the capital fund to the general fund. We need the money in the general fund, obviously, or else you wouldn't be coming to taxpayers asking for more money. We need that money there to maintain city services, and city council should not accept any rationalizations from the city manager or anyone else for not putting the money where we need it. Not to do that and to do otherwise seems to me to indicate that you wish to keep the money where you can spend it on other things other than running the city. And at this time and in this climate, economic climate, that is totally inappropriate. Second, you should have restructured the financial house of the DDA to ensure that they cease to incur future debt. As it is right now, it is predicted that their current debt will fall into the laps of taxpayers by 2015. That is totally inappropriate to allow them to have free rein to continue to incur future debt. Third, you should have made a commitment to the taxpayers that you will cease and desist doling out tax abatements to businesses with no strings attached. Some communities, very progressive communities, are awarding abatements only if a certain number of jobs are created. Some communities are even demanding that those jobs be filled by those who live in the community. I have an article that if you'd like me to email that to you, I'd be more than happy. It indicates who those communities are. If businesses do not live up to the contract that they enter into in these communities, the money is yanked back. Simple. That's what you expect in a contract, that all members live up to the terms. 4, you should have made certain that the operation and maintenance costs of the proposed transit center will not fall into the laps of Troy taxpayers in the future. I understand that federal government money is, if it goes through, we'll be paying for it. However, there's been no discussion about operation and maintenance. And as sure as I'm standing here, I'm quite sure that without some provisions, those costs will fall into our laps. You should have also stopped paying for a lobbyist to push the project onto federal legislators. Now, I know that most of you up there, probably on this side, don't agree with me. Doesn't make you bad people, doesn't make me bad people. I think this is America, and we can all have different opinions, and all love the city, and all love this country, and I think that's what is happening here. People are just expressing their opinions. It does bother me a little bit when somebody comes up and says, well, this group is ethical and this group isn't. I think we're all ethical, we all have character, we all care, and we all love this city. We have different opinions, and that's all it is. So I hope you will take to heart some of the suggestions that I've made. Thank you.
Thank you. John Witt is our next speaker. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to follow up on getting answers to 2 questions I asked at the last meeting to the City Administration. Unfortunately, neither of my 2 questions were at all answered last meeting. I think it's very inappropriate for the City Administration to refuse to answer questions from residents. Please remember that you work for the residents of the city and that blatantly ignoring residents' questions is a clear breach of your official duties. I hope this pattern of ignoring residents' questions ends tonight. Once again, here are my 2 questions for the City Administration. Number 1, is there a signed agreement between the police command officer and fire staff officer unions and the city regarding the furlough days, also known as 2.5 weeks of vacation, that the unions have supposedly agreed to take if the 29% $40 million tax increase passes? If there is a written agreement, when will that agreement be released publicly? Number 2, how does the city reconcile the fact that it is sending out a brochure simultaneously stating that the passage of the 29% $40 million tax increase will result in full levels of service in the police and fire department, while also resulting in 5% less service by police officers and firefighters. This seems to be like a blatant contradiction, and the residents deserve an explanation of this contradiction by the city administration. I look forward to my two simple and important questions being answered at tonight's meeting. Ignoring residents cannot continue, and it should end tonight by answering these questions. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Cruz. Good evening.
Madam Mayor, members of council, and city staff, Happy New Year. My name is Tony Cruz, and I've been a resident of Troy for over 16 years. And I'm here to once again voice my protest over a proposal to use public funds to hold a special election in February. This ballot vote is a desperate attempt to frighten and beguile many citizens into voting for a property tax increase that will cause the greatest financial injury to those who already make the largest contributions to Troy's economy. Specifically, a special election will cost in the vicinity of $100,000, or the rough equivalent of one salaried head, benefits included. To waste this kind of money in our current economy is reckless and an affront to the informed members of your constituency. Any well-run organization, be it civic, corporate, or even a household, should treat its wealth as if it were hard-earned, because it is hard-earned. The wealth of civic governing bodies should be all the more respected because it's hard-earned by others who have placed their trust in all of you. Mr. Zerlag, with all due respect, the informational brochure that has often been referred to as unbiased is an insult to the intelligence of any well-informed citizen. To wit, the authorship alone precludes any lack of bias. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's simply disingenuous to claim otherwise. It's as if I were to write a testimonial to one of my children and claim that it too was unbiased. You shouldn't presume such a high level of naivete on the part of those who place bread on your family's table. The brochure claims the average city tax was $1,114 last year. This is pointless. When it comes to some things, averages mean nothing, particularly when the statistical variances are large. If your head were in the oven at 274 degrees Fahrenheit and your feet were in an ice box at 76.8 degrees below zero, do the math, and you'll find that your average body temperature would still be the normal 98.6, but you wouldn't be very comfortable. My property tax contribution to the city of Troy last year was not $1,100, it was well over $2,000, and I by no means live in opulence. If any part of this millage passes, many business owners with homes considerably larger than mine will be forced to move, lay off employees, and will collectively be the proverbial dead goose that at one point laid golden eggs for you, the keepers of the public financial trust. What do you do if you need a new TV set and you can't afford that 52-inch widescreen? Do you go to your employer, ask for a raise? Of course not. You purchase a new television receiver that's within your means, or you do without, for as long as necessary. At one point, the brochure states, and I quote, "The police, command officers, and fire staff officers have agreed to the equivalent of a 5% wage reduction contingent on the passage of the millage," end quote. The cost of the election, along with its sheer uncertainty, is like using inherited wealth to purchase a few thousand lottery tickets in vain hopes of winning the jackpot to be able to purchase an otherwise unaffordable asset. Not with our money. We expect you to properly husband it and to demonstrate a level of thrift that is commensurate with the gravity of the current economic situation. Your constituency is financially decimated, people. Many are currently out of work and paying their mortgage notes and tax bills out of their children's college funds. They don't have the option of a special election. They're making every sacrifice they can right now just to survive, and the best bargain that you, Mr. Zerlag, can achieve is a mere 5% equivalent wage contingent on the passage of this ludicrous proposal? We're paying you to do a much, and I mean a much better job of bargaining, Mr. Zerlag. It never ceases to amaze me how some people can have more faith in their government than their God. Case in point, in an irony reminiscent of the Stockholm Syndrome, the people most likely to vote yes in the proposed February election are by and large those least likely to be affected by its outcome. These people honestly believe government has all the answers, and I'm here to remind each and every one of you that you operate at the pleasure of your constituents, not the other way around. The very least we can expect from the city manager you've appointed is real bargaining with real outcomes, not contingencies. Many of us fortunate enough to have survived months of unemployment know from personal experience there are many avenues to public thrift that haven't even been broached. Elimination of employer-contributed pensions, reductions in health care coverage, reductions in base, not equivalent salaries, reductions in staff to permit operation of our public library and certain facilities on a curtailed schedule with shared duties. This list can go on, but it doesn't even begin to address issues such as waste and malfeasance, which are currently being swept under the rug by certain members of this very council. A great many of us continue to suffer economically and are bearing under with dignity. Punishing your constituency with higher taxes by hiding behind an ill-informed electorate will guarantee increased failure for many and possible financial ruin for our city as well. It's high time this council started handling its wealth as if it had to earn every penny. In closing, many of the taxpayers who keep our city employees' families sheltered, clothed, and fed have already made enormous sacrifices themselves to stay financially afloat. I expect the city to do likewise. What I don't expect is this persistent effort to frighten the public into raising its own taxes. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Mr. Peters, Richard Peters. Good evening.
Yeah, I just got a couple of questions. Is the budget determined by the council, the manager, or by charter? And also, I don't know the online thing of Troy. And one last thing, marijuana laws in this country are changing, and I don't know if they're legal or not, but I think maybe we ought to take another look at it, defining or whatnot. And well, I personally support legalizing soft drugs and decriminalizing hard drugs. So I think if we maybe took another approach at this, that we might have a, I think it's more friction creating than anything else, to tell you the truth. And it seems to me like with less tensions than in our country. So, okay. What's the online? You go on computer, look at the, but it's Troy, cityoftroy.org.
The website?
Yeah.
It's www.troymi.gov. Okay, thank you. Charlene Feminino? Good evening.
Hi, good evening, members of the council. I have some questions here I wanted to hand out to have so you could have a copy of what I'm reading, because I'd like to have these questions answered.
Would you please give those to the city clerk? Thank you.
Okay. City council members, on behalf of the citizens and taxpayers of Troy, I would like you to provide answers to the following questions. How is it that Sheriff Bouchard, who had a $21 million deficit, could balance his budget for 3 years and out of 800 employees only had to lay off 14 people? Why has the Troy City Council still not taken the necessary steps to balance its budget? Why did you not put that in the brochure? And why are you saying that you will lay off 50 of the 200 employees, which is a 25% reduction, when Sheriff Bouchard only had to lay off 2% of his employees? You say that the Troy Police and Firemen's Union agreed to a 5% wage concession, but it is a 5% reduction in wages, or is it to be a furlough days for which they won't be paid, which is in essence the same as a reduction in police and fire service? And did you know that all the county personnel have taken real pay cuts? And isn't it true that even if the tax is increased, you are going to reduce the city services anyway? Isn't it what Mr. Zerlag said this past December? And isn't it true that you are not guaranteeing that there won't be cuts in city services even if there is a tax increase? Also, have any of the employee unions offered to reduce the amount of the dues that the employees pay to enable them to take pay reductions with the city to reduce the city deficit? Is it not only fair that if the taxpayers are suffering, that the union should do their fair share to help families pay their bills and keep their homes? Have any of the union officials offered to reduce their salary and benefits so those savings can be passed on to the city to help reduce the deficit? Is it not true that you also used the 2008 financial information to arrive at the figures in the brochure instead of the 2009 figures, which, if used, would show that there is a greater percentage increase to the tax in the tax to the taxpayers than if the 2008 figures are used? And is this property tax to be on all the commercial property as well as the residential property? If so, how many businesses do you expect to leave Troy for cities with lower tax rates? Have you even considered this happening? If this tax is increased and Troy becomes less attractive as a place to live or to do business, won't this further reduce our property values? I noticed in the 2008, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, it said that each of the golf courses in 2008 spent around $500,000 more than they received in revenue from operations. So I would like to know how much more did each of the golf courses spend in 2009 than they received in revenue from operations? And have they ever gotten more in operation revenues than they have expended in the time in which they have been open to the public? And the 2008 CAFR said that the Aquatic Center spent around $500,000 more than it took in from operating revenues. How much more did the Aquatic Center spend in 2009 than it received in operating revenues? And has the Aquatic Center ever gotten more in operating revenues than it expended in any 1 year since it opened? And I would like to note that I was against the Aquatic Center, came before the council at the time they were debating it. I think it was a mistake then, and it's a mistake now. In 2009, did the community center receive more in operating revenues than it expended in operations? And if so, how much? And if not, how much did it lose? Has the community center ever taken more in operating revenues than it has expended for operations? And if so, in what year did it do so? And in 2009, how much did the Nature Center and Troy Museum spend in expenditures as opposed to revenues from operating revenues? And have the Nature Center and the Troy Museum even received in any 1 year more from operating revenue than is spent in expenditures? And also, lastly, has the city ever considered doing away with the Downtown Development Authority, which is really just a vehicle to spend taxes without voter approval? This was originally brought into existence under FDR, and it was meant for depressed downtown areas, and I hardly think that Troy has a depressed downtown area. And here we are spending $2.5 million there on the beautification of Big Beaver and Rochester Road intersection. Why is this money not being taken to reduce the deficit? I mean, I just think it's really insensitive on the part of the council to expect taxpayers to keep digging into their pockets when you're being so irresponsible in the way you run the city. I think we should be closing the Nature Center, the Aquatic Center, and a lot of these other things before we even start talking about reducing police and fire services. Okay, thanks.
Robin Passman is our next speaker. Pardon? Oh, thank you. Pat Connolly?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope everybody's well. Happy New Year to y'all.
Happy New Year.
I am a Troy resident, a very proud Troy resident of 25 years. I've raised my children here in this city, and I've watched really some remarkable things happen over that 25 years, which I think all of us should be proud of, those that have been around for a while, and I think proud for those that have just joined the council and so forth, because you got some direction to follow here and a standard to keep up. I've also seen, though, over this time that as a well-maintained and attractive city to raise a family, our taxes have gone up over this 25 years, not to the extent that we're looking at today in this special election. Never before in the 25 years have I seen the property values in this city go down the way they've been going down. So things aren't adding up, they're not balancing out with what we're trying to accomplish here at the end of February, as opposed to where the city and its property values are really headed. I am the chairman and CEO of an automotive supplier company. And without a doubt, I have a huge disappointment in the government of this city on this particular issue of raising taxes. As an automotive supplier, we have been called upon to run our company on behalf of our customers with a responsibility that we also have a return to the shareholders. In your particular case, I'm not sure that you saw the signs coming your way 24 months ago when things were really happening here in this city and in this state, in the surrounding area, relative to the machine that really feeds it all. That's the automotive industry, as we've all learned. And we're all scattering now, trying to find new businesses with new ideas to bring into this area. We in the automotive business, we saw it. And one of the things you have to do, city manager and the rest of the support staff, you have to right size your business to the revenue stream that you predict and expect coming in. And these things aren't just sat out there on your business plan and say, we're going to damn the torpedoes and go this way. We have to step up and make some very tough decisions when we're in management. The citizens of this city are your customers. You are late to the party, in my opinion, and so you want to cover late management reaction by extraditing more revenue from a tax-weary population. I'm not going to argue whether it's $30, $207, $380. You should be more accurate in putting that word out. There should not be a dispute as to how much it's going to be. It should be what it is, speaking for itself accurately, so every citizen and every employee of this city sings the same song and the same tune. I'm asking you to do such things as consider, I know you've done some outsourcing, or consider some outsourcing to achieve a neutrality to your budgets. You haven't done it fast enough, and you haven't done it soon enough. In our company, to a person, with the exception of certain management people, everybody gave up 15 to 20% of their wages and benefits to help balance our budget in the company. Those that didn't give that 15 to 20% gave 50% or more, because we had 24 months to decide whether we were going to stay alive and we were going to do justice and we were going to save jobs. I never threatened at all that people were going to lose their job. I came up with the ideas on how we're all going to help each other save our jobs. We shouldn't pick on the police, or we shouldn't pick on the fire. We shouldn't look at the library. We should look at the core business of the city of Troy and what it is. We're not golfers, okay? We don't run golf courses here. The city is not a golf mecca like up north that are all individually owned up there. We should give serious consideration to what we're doing in the golf business. For an instance, we get out of, is the ROI there for the aquatic center or not? Make a business case for it. If not, sell memberships. Those people that utilize it, let them pay for it. We'll subsidize it a little bit, but not all the way, okay? Museums, Troy Days, very expensive to have. Do you get an ROI out of that? Maybe you got to set that aside for a year or two till you get your balance. We can do that. I've iced a few plants in my time. I'm bringing them back on stream. Is that my time?
Yes.
Okay.
You can conclude if you have a concluding comment.
Well, I just want to say the conclusion that I have is that I'm not quite sure from a businessman's point of view that you have explored every avenue possible in order to not pick on certain key issues that affect every citizen's concern. We have other ways to go. So thank you, and I'm sorry I went over my time.
Thank you. Sandy Scott is the last person that signed up.
Mayor, City Council. I feel really inept. I've never done this, and I don't know how to approach it. And I guess basically I'm looking for some latitude and guidance. I actually work for a company called Liberty Investments. We own the buildings at 50 and 100 West Big Beaver, and I do the accounts payable there. I'm responsible for mailing in the payments for everything in that building. The water and sewer payment I had mailed out on the 12th, and they said that it wasn't actually processed until the 18th, even though the postage mark shows the 12th. The reason that's a particular concern to me is because I was basically told by every level, all the way up to Jim Nash, that it was my choice to not physically bring the payment in and trust the mail system to get it in, or that it could have been mailed in a different time frame. This will personally cost me over $2,400. Everyone here has been talking about the tax increase and how it's going to impact their home by potentially $345. I'm talking about this personally impacting me by like $2,400 personally, not as the business, because I'm held accountable. So I don't know who to go to try and appeal the fact that the postmark can't be used as proof of the payment, or that there's no accountability to the lockbox department that processes the payment. I don't know that they received it and left it on a desk, or it could have got jammed in a machine, and I'm solely left to carry that burden. So I don't know what direction to go to with that.
Thank you. Mr. Zerline?
Your Honor, members of council, I'll look into this matter and report back to the council if I can have your name and number.
Thank you.
Right now, yes.
That concludes the public comment section. We will continue on now with our, yes, I had a request from a council member to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll return to the regular business. There are no postponed items, but there are regular business items, and I see we have some folks in the audience that are probably here to hear the results of some of those items. The next item on our agenda is appointments to boards and committees.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Kerwin.
I'm wondering if my colleagues share a concern about our continuing to make appointments to boards and committees as our staff shrinks. We have 29 committees. So there was some reference tonight to options 1, 2, and 3 posted on our website. Whether you're looking at option 1 with the outsourcing and regionalization and the 13% decline in our full-time, or whether you're going to option 3 and looking at 145 remaining employees, which would put us really with more serving on our boards and committees than a staff to work through all of those. And so I was hoping before we make more appointments to the boards and committees that we might have a conversation about the sustainability of going forward with some of them.
I think that there are some that are required by law. We might get some opinion from our city attorney and discuss this at another time. I think at one point, a few months ago, or maybe a half a year ago even, we talked about the fact of looking at the boards and committees and seeing if we were going to combine some of them or if some of them were actually a necessity to have. But I think maybe this is the time to look at that, at least that's my opinion, in view of the fact that they do meet at a time that does require, staff to be there, and then there are activities. I think that is a conversation that we need to have as a council. At least that's my opinion. Councilwoman Beltramini, do I see you signaling?
It was almost 4 years ago, because it was the last time John Zerlag was city manager. We talked about reviewing the boards, and I brought up that there were some that had shared interest in what they would influence, and could we combine them? And at that point, there was no real will to do that or need seen by staff. And I guess I agree with Ms. Kerwin's opinion that right now, when we're talking about significantly cutting back on staff, and you look at, there are, for instance, 3 or 4 boards that are staffed by the building department. There are 3 boards that are staffed by the museum, which may go out of business. You've got a library board that if we close the library, won't have a purpose. We have a planning commission that could be influenced in real ways by having appointments there with persons who share physical challenges or the position of the elderly. So I very much share your concern that do we want to continue perpetuating those boards? I agree with the mayor. I think we have 7 or 9 that are either required by charter or by state statute. So we have to fill those. But the voluntary boards, there are ways for citizens to get input, and the people serving on those boards serve until they are replaced. So to just continue perpetuating a system that all of a sudden may have to be totally revamped when we can wait a few months, see what the budget will bring, this is perhaps something we could do now and take a proactive stand.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily should equate to such drastic action. I think one of the starting points before we come to a conclusion is to ascertain whether or not we need to have staff presence at all of these meetings all of the time. Between 1993 and 2000, I was on a board that was appointed by council and never had a permanent staff liaison. We had visits from from Mr. Zerlag from time to time, who was the assistant city manager at the time, but we never had a liaison. And that is something I would say would be appropriate to consider before we decide to look at eliminating boards.
I think that, Councilman Harlach, was that Historic District Commission? I know at the time when I served on that, our city clerk, Tammy Renshaw, was the person that came to the meetings then. But, things have changed over, a period of years, too. Does anyone else want to make comments with regard to that? Councilman Slater?
Mayor, from my perspective, I'm very surprised at how many committees we really have. Until I sat on council, I wasn't aware of how many we had, and I really haven't had an opportunity to look at everything as I need to look at it, and I would greatly appreciate if we would postpone some of these items until I've had a chance to really review these positions. That's my perspective.
And some of the committees do have special requirements that are listed with their committee. Others, they do not. So that's another matter to look at. Anyone else? Councilwoman McGinnis?
If I could just speak briefly as well, I think that there are some unanswered questions, and not necessarily because we haven't been following these closely, but I just don't think that it doesn't sound like there's really been an opportunity taken to evaluate each of the committees. I think it's my understanding that since their formation, not one of them has disbanded. Obviously, things have changed within the community, possibly even the reason for starting these committees or perpetuating them or keeping up their meeting schedules or their ties to the staff. Those have changed as well. So I think it would be beneficial for everyone to make sure that we're utilizing not only the time of the staff that's needed to make sure that these committees function properly, but also the time of the people that are signing up and coming to these committees wanting to take some action without really having our finger on the pulse of what's going on with each of these committees. I think we'd be doing everyone a disservice, especially when time is valuable, but now resources are also equally as valuable. So from the standpoint of a new council person, as well as from the standpoint that things are changing within the city, and maybe more so here within the next couple of months, in terms of the budget, I think it would probably be a good opportunity for us to take a closer look at what we have in terms of committees and make sure that they're all running as effectively as possible.
It sounds like this would be an item for a study session, perhaps sometime in March, later in March to talk about it, and then that would give staff an opportunity too to give us some input on some things, as they look at it. I don't know do we need a resolution? I bet we do, don't we? Because it's been part of our regular agenda. Councilwoman Kerwin?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I had, when I first came on board, as the new members did, I thought this would be an appropriate study session, and I have since learned that it's important to make a resolution instead of just make suggestions that tend to go nowhere. So if I could, I'd like to resolve that Troy City Council directs city administration to refrain from placing non-statutory or charter-mandated board and committee nominations on city council agendas until city council has had an opportunity to meet in study session to discuss the purpose, function, and impact of all boards and committees.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini. Do you need me to paraphrase the resolution, or do you like to read it back? Does someone need it? Yes?
I believe I have it. I can read it back.
All right, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby directs city administration to refrain from placing non-statutory or charter-amended, I'm not sure if I have that right, mandated board and committee nominations on city council agendas until city council has had an opportunity to meet in study session to discuss the purpose, function, and impact of on city staff of all boards and committees.
Okay.
Mayor?
Discussion, Councilman Howard.
One of the concerns I have with this is the fact that there are some boards and committees that are established by ordinance and that are part of the city's code. And I have great concern that we not follow our code, and that's not part of the resolution. So if somebody would like to insert that, I think it would make it a better resolution.
Yes, Councilwoman Kerwin, or Councilman Slater, who was...
I suppose I would suggest that the committees could continue meeting as they are without continue to appoint. And that's how generally it is done. Until someone is replaced, they continue to serve. And let's look at all of those when we meet in study session.
So, Councilman Howard, would that answer your query about being concerned about ones that have to do with the code? Because they would still be in existence. It's that we wouldn't be appointing or reappointing until we've had a chance to review them. We didn't mean that we were doing away with them. Councilman Howard?
Two things. One, it is hard for dead people to attend a meeting. Two, it is hard for people that don't live in the state of Michigan to attend a meeting.
Councilman Slater, did I see you signaling before? Did you want to say something with regard to the resolution?
I'm not clear what Councilman Harlech was referring to. Maybe if you could just clarify that a little bit for me.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Howard?
Mayor, we're referring to people who are deceased, and normally when somebody dies and they're sitting on a committee, we would appoint somebody to fill their position. I don't think it's very logical to assume that when they're dead that they're going to be continuing to attend the meeting until somebody is appointed to replace them. The presumption that was submitted from the other side of the table is that if there's a vacancy on a board or a committee and nobody is appointed to replace that individual, then that individual will continue to serve. It's very difficult if they're not physically present in this city, or if they're not physically alive either.
I see your concern now. Councilwoman Beltramini?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would offer an amendment to the motion as stated that says, unless any city committee or board cannot meet quorum requirements with the current members.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Howard, that we amend the resolution to indicate unless board and committee cannot meet quorum with the current members. Discussion of the amendment? Councilwoman Kerwin?
Again, this isn't to be put off forever. I think, again, this is just simply to deal with the sustainability issue. So on ordinances, we do have quite a few on ordinances, but I hesitate truly to make 3-year appointments if, in fact, we were then, within the next meeting, going to consider combining or in some other way streamlining our boards the same way as we've had to streamline the functions of government. So I certainly I understand the interest in ordinance, but I think I'm going to stick with the way I vote will be for non-statutory or charter mandated.
Further discussion of the amendment?
Mayor?
Councilman
Could I just ask for a
Slater?
legal,
Yes.
legal opinion on the ordinance issue.
Yeah, Mrs. Bloom?
Is your question whether or not we can do that with the
Yes.
ordinances? Yeah, there are some boards and committees that are charter mandated or state statute mandated. For example, I see that the Board of Review is on your item here, and that would be something that you would probably need to have a full board because
Right.
they're going to be active before you get to that. There are a number of other boards and committees that are created by ordinance that this council may decide that their responsibilities are duplicated or that they can be combined with others. So there are several ordinance created boards that you may not choose to fill in the future. And that would be perfectly legal. You can change your ordinances. We certainly would have to modify the ordinances, but that would be brought back to you.
Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Beltramini?
The purpose of the amendment was not simply to satisfy Councilman Howlack's concerns. It was, we have boards and committees, and unless we're going to say tonight that we don't want to use them, we must enable them to function. So if they cannot meet quorum, they cannot function, no matter how they were created. So if your thought is to not do away with non-statutory or charter mandated committees and they're functioning tonight, you need to enable them to function even if you are not going to make new appointments.
And being that our intention is to address this
Relatively soon.
as compared to when it was originally discussed, that could work. Further discussion of the amendment? The vote on the amendment then, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howard
Yes.
Kerwin?
No.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Amendment passes. Is there further discussion on the motion? The motion then, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Howard
No.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
No.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. Then on our next agenda, we would have ones that are, for example, like Board of Review, correct? Okay. So we'll wait for the next meeting then to see which ones come forward. I know we have some on the agenda tonight. I'm not clear on how we handle that. Mrs. Bloom or Mrs. Bartholomew?
You can move forward with the appointments tonight if you choose to do so. This doesn't prohibit them because they do fall within this listing. So you can move forward or you can move them to next meeting.
Okay. Is that, Mrs. Bloom, your suggestion also, since they're already listed, the ones that are the appointments? Not the nominations, but the
Right.
appointments?
Yeah, council can do whatever it wishes to.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that the Board of Review, especially because we all know that is one that is required that we have to have. So I'll bring forward the motion to appoint James Edward Hatch. It's a reappointment to a 3-year term ending January 31st, 2013.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Howard. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howard
Yes.
Motion passes. On city council appointments?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Beltramini?
It would look to me that absent the appointment tonight of Leslie Witt that this committee could be without quorum?
That committee, I know we had a lot of people come forward to be on the committee, and they have special requirements too for the committee. Now we seem to not have people that want to be on it.
Well, we have one with transportation,
Right.
one with disability, and one
Right.
General population, but I think you need more than 3 people on that committee.
Right.
Therefore, since we only have one alternate, I would move the appointment of, and the retiree system as well at this point. I think we would be well served. These people have been notified and consented to appoint. I think that we should appoint these 4 people as presented tonight. Municipal Building Authority is required, Employee Retirement System, and the other 2 are our own choice. But I think we would be well served, so I would move all 4 of those.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Howrelack, that we appoint to the Advisory Committee for Persons with Disability, Leslie Golden Witt, Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees, Health Care Benefits Plan Trust, Mark Calise, Liquor Advisory Committee, Andrew Kalstunas, and Municipal Building Authority, Tom Sawyer. I'm going to request that we split these because I have a comment about the voting. So, do we need a motion to split the vote?
It would be a division of
All
the
right.
question, and yes.
I move that we divide the vote of the 4 committees.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we vote on them individually. Vote on the division. Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howrelack?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. My comment is this, that I think that we should go back to the provision that we always had for many years in the city, and that is that a person serve on only one board and committee. And I think that sometimes we have people that are well-meaning that have put their name in for many different committees, but I think that it should be with only one. So therefore, that's the reason I've asked for a split, because there's someone who's been nominated here that serves on 2 other committees, and that's why. So we'll do them individually.
Mayor?
Guys, yes, Councilman Slater?
Could I just make a comment that I'm going to vote no on all 4 because I haven't had an opportunity to do my homework. It has nothing to do with the people. I asked earlier if I could have some time to review this, and so I'm going to vote no.
I know, and we did have the holiday time. Some people perhaps didn't have a chance to study as much.
Mayor?
Councilman Howrelack?
Yes, a question for staff. And the clerk might best answer this, I guess, but when was the last time, let me actually rephrase that, was the Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities able to meet at their last meeting?
I am not aware of that. I could look it up and get back with you, but I don't know.
The reason why I asked is when I went to the men's room out there was a posting that said they couldn't make quorum on December, I think it was December the 9th. And that's a concern that I have, and the reason why that's a concern to me is because the individuals who have donated their time and take the effort to come to City Hall, especially if they do so with great effort, I think it's very disappointing to them to show up and realize that perhaps they've wasted all of that effort, and that perhaps their willingness to serve is no longer welcome in this city. I think it's unfortunate. Speaking to the other ones, the Employees Retirement System and the Retiree Health Care Benefits Plan and Trust obviously needs to have somebody appointed. Mr. Cleese has been on that board for a number of years. I think almost everybody up here has to know him. What else? Liquor Advisory Committee, again, a committee which provides us with great advice. We have a couple of items on the agenda this evening that went to them first, and they did a lot of legwork for us. The Municipal Building Authority is necessary at times. It hasn't been necessary in quite some time. And I don't think Mr. Sawyer has to worry about going to any meetings in the next couple of years. But it's good to have it staffed, just in case we decide to build something.
Further discussion on the committees? So the first one is Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Kerwin.
may I offer an amendment, and that is to the term.
Oh, must we do it for 3 years is what you're saying?
That's right.
What are you suggesting? 1 year, 6 months, while we make a decision?
Yes, I would say 1 year.
1 year? Yeah, Councilwoman Belton?
Question for the attorney or the clerk, are terms not set?
Yes, I think that's why she posed it in a question. Yes, Mrs. Bloom?
There are, and maybe this gets back to Councilman Slater's question, there are some that are set by the ordinance. It's really fact-specific as to each of the individual boards and committees. Some of them are by resolution, and certainly that's something that can be changed with a council resolution, but there are others that are in the ordinances or state statute.
Right.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Might I suggest that there is one unexpired term? Would that work for you?
Yes,
I'd be willing to support that.
thank you.
Which one is that?
Question for the clerk, ma'am.
Yes, Councilman Beltrame?
Mrs. Bartholomew, does that mean then that we need to change the resolution appointing Leslie Golden Witt to a term that would expire 11/01/2011 instead of the one as stated?
That would be advisable because they're both listed as unexpired.
Do you need,
If that's,
yeah, that's the unexpired term is November of 11. Do you need a resolution of an amendment to do that, or can you just do it?
it needs to be by a resolution, but I wrote that as a resolution by Councilmember Harlech and supported by Councilmember McGinnis? No? Kerwin?
No.
Kerwin.
Okay. So let's vote on that.
Further discussion? Then the vote, you're speaking of the amendment, correct?
Correct.
The latest amendment, okay. The vote then, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Slater?
No.
Mayor Schilling?
No.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Harlech?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion passes. Amendment passes. And next,
The other three.
do we need another motion on this committee? We don't. No? We'll go to the other three committees now, correct?
No, you need now a vote on the actual appointment.
Right, that's what I meant.
Right.
That's what I was anticipating. Sorry. Okay. Yes, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling,
No.
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
No.
Motion passes. And now, the other three committees, correct? Separated?
they're separated as individual
Yes.
committees, correct?
Yes. Okay, Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees, Mark Cleese, reappointment. Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
No.
Mayor Schilling,
Yes. Motion passes. And Liquor Advisory Committee, Andrew Kalstunas. Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
No.
Mayor Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Motion passes. And Municipal Building Authority?
Councilmember Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
No.
Mayor Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Then we'll skip over nominations.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Howard?
we do have a, one that we do need to do, and that is
Which-
the Building Code Board of Appeals. And that's a reappointment, and I'll
Oh.
move it, of Theodore, I always have a hard time with his name, Jorman.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Councilman Beltramini, that we nominate to the Building Board, Code Board of Appeals. I'm trying to find it in here. Lost it. Oh, it's Michael Tyler, is that right?
No. It's Theodore Jorman.
Oh, Theodore Drusman?
Yeah.
Drusman? Okay, Theodore Drusman. Discussion? The vote then for the nomination, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
No.
Mayor Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Do we do election commission at this time, since that's a requirement?
We haven't heard.
Pardon?
Oh, wait.
Can we wait till the next week?
We haven't heard.
Pardon?
We haven't heard.
Oh, we haven't heard. I'm sorry, we haven't gotten the notification yet. Okay, all right. Any others that we need to do? Okay. All right. H3 is the approval of the MDOT construction contract for the reconstruction of Rochester Road from Torpy to Barclay and Waddles, east and west of Rochester Road. We have a motion?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Beltramini?
resolved that the Troy City Council hereby approves MDOT contract number 09-5747 between the City of Troy and the Michigan Department of Transportation for the reconstruction and widening of Rochester Road from Torpy to Barclay and Waddles Road east and west of Rochester Road at an estimated cost to the City of Troy of $4,216,250, and hereby authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the documents, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Do we have a second? I'll second the item, get it on the table. Moved by Councilman Beltramini, seconded by the chair. Discussion? Mr. Zerlag, this project has been waiting and in the works for how many years in connection with the Rochester Road improvements? Do you want me to call on?
I know it's been many years.
Okay.
I think that either Mark or John can give the specifics, or Steve Van Dyke.
Okay. Yes, I know it's been many years, and of course, we have to have our monies in line in order to receive the federal
Right.
money. And
Yes, we have
also the MDOT.
Right. Our
Yes.
policy is to use city
Right.
funds to leverage grant funds when
Yes,
possible.
correct. Mr. Miller, do you know how many years?
Not exactly. I know Steve Andette is probably on his way here to the
Oh,
city
okay.
engineering site.
Aha.
That has been a fair number of years.
I was
I
trying
can't,
to
I
do it
can't
from
recall the
memory.
budget
It
document.
seemed-
My guess is 12 years. We'll see what Steve
it,
says.
it seems like we've been talking about it forever, so, Mr. Andette?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This project actually started in 1999, so it's been waiting for 10 years for construction.
Right.
And during the last 10 years, we've gone through the preliminary engineering phase. We just completed the right-of-way acquisition phase. Now this final phase is construction is finally here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Kerwin?
In the background information, it goes through the some $15.5 million, which have come in from other sources, and our match will be $4.2 million. Again, we will be looking at some ADA accessibility here, American Disabilities Act, and there was a misunderstanding, I think, from many members of our community when the ADA requirements went in on Big Beaver. Some thought it was flamboyant to have the color red, or wondered about the bumps on the road. I was hoping that someone could speak to those compliance issues and how when we build new things, we need to be up to the compliance standard.
Mr. Van Dam?
Yes, the ADA standards changed approximately 4 years ago, which literally made almost every ramp in the city, in every city, obsolete. So whenever a project is being done, road project, park project, anything that impacts the corner where there is a ramp, that ramp has to be replaced and brought up to city standard. And that's the reason why today, on literally every project, we are redoing ramps. Even though those ramps may have only been done 5 or 6 years ago, they have to be brought up to the current ADA standard.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Just along those lines, Mr. Van Dette, is that was the case with the intersection improvement at Gulfview and Coolidge, is that correct, with the sidewalk?
Gulfview and Coolidge, yes, that project was primarily a traffic signal project to better align the left turn phases of the east and westbound Gulfview. But because we were doing road work and signal work in that area, then the ADA ramps had to follow, and those had to be upgraded as well.
Councilman Beltramini?
The other thing I think it's important of this $4.2 million, 2/3 of that is coming out of drain, sewer, and the water fund to make those kinds of improvements so that now that everybody's on board to widen Rochester Road, we don't go in another year and tear it up again. I mean, it is an efficiency thing. But when we want to do that, we have to pay for that. So 2.1 million of this is road money, and the rest of it is to keep water flowing underground.
Councilman Kerwin?
There was a suggestion tonight, and I know it sounds very common sense that we could just pour money in together and use it in the same way. Why couldn't we pour this into general fund? Why couldn't capital? And that was a suggestion made during comments. But again, this is an example of carefully saved money for a major capital project that has then been matched by multiple millions in order to see it through fruition. So I think that's really important when we're just kind of looking at, well, here's some money, couldn't it be there, couldn't it be here? There are reasons for it, and this is one of those major reasons.
and the designated funds from the other entities must be used specifically for the project in which they are designated for. Otherwise, those funds would go to another community for a project that they have that's in the works. Yeah. That's why I asked about how long the project's been in the works, since 1999. That is a very busy area of the city.
In fact, one of the leading areas of access.
Okay. Further discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion passes. And then H4, City of Troy versus Susan Settleman as trustee for the Esther Jeffrey Trust.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Beltramini?
resolved that the Troy City Council hereby approves the proposed consent judgment in the condemnation case of City of Troy v. Susan Sandelman as trustee for the Esther Jeffrey Trust, U/A dated 12/18/70. Oakland County Circuit Court Case Number 09-097979-CC, and hereby authorizes payment in the amount stated therein. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council hereby authorizes the City Attorney's Office to execute the document on behalf of the City of Troy, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. H5, request from NKG Business Incorporated to transfer ownership of escrow 2009 SDD and SDM licensed business from People State Bank located at 3176 Rochester. MLCC request number 527498. There's A and B in this resolution. The transfer of the license and then the agreement. Councilwoman Kerwin?
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby considers for approval the request from NKG Business Incorporated to transfer ownership of escrow 2009 SDD and SDM licensed business from People State Bank located at 3176 Rochester, Troy, Michigan 48083, Oakland County, MLCC request number 527498, above all others, contingent upon passing the Troy Fire Department's final inspection, and be it further resolved that it is the consensus of this legislative body that the applications be recommended above all others for issuance. And B as well. Whereas the Troy City Council deems it necessary to enter agreements with applicants for liquor license for the purpose of providing civil remedies to the City of Troy in the event licensees fail to adhere to Troy codes and ordinances. Therefore, be it resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves an agreement with MKG Business Incorporated to transfer ownership of escrow 2009 SDD and SDM licensed business from People State Bank located at 3176 Rochester, Troy, Michigan 4803, Oakland County, MLCC request number 527498, contingent upon passing the Troy Fire Department's final inspection, and hereby authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the document, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin and seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis that we approve both A and B as printed and read. Discussion?
Madam Mayor, I'm wondering if
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I'm wondering if the petitioner is present with us, or those.
Yeah, the petitioner is present. Did you have a question for the petitioner or a comment? Yes. Would you come forward, ma'am? Thank you.
My name is Kristen Davis. I work for the Attorney's Office representing the applicants. Okay. The applicant was here with me but left a couple minutes ago.
Okay. Councilwoman Kerwin?
I'm wondering if you've had an opportunity to meet with the Troy Community Coalition representatives, or if you're familiar with the culture and mores in our community regarding how seriously we take the issuance and the responsibilities of those who receive liquor licenses.
Yes, they have. They actually have a combined experience in this related business of over 30 years. They're ready, willing, and able to take the Tips and Tams training class. Everyone in their business, they take it very seriously to abide by the rules of the MLCC.
We take it as seriously as well. I just wanted to point out, for your information, we do have in attendance the executive director of the Troy Community Coalition, who is often very helpful to businesses who acquire those, in order for you to understand completely the values of our community regarding this.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any others before the vote? Okay, Mrs. Bartholomew, vote.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. And H6 is a request from Kerr Enterprises to transfer ownership of 2009 SDD and SDM licensed business from Troy Cheese and Wine Market located at 2558 through 2560 East Maple, MLCC request number 522806. It also is A and B.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman McGinnis?
resolve that Troy City Council hereby considers for approval the request from Kerr Enterprises Incorporated to transfer ownership of 2009 SDD and SDM licensed business from Troy Cheese and Wine Market located at 2558-2560 East Maple, Troy, Michigan 48083, Oakland County, MLCC request number 522806, quote unquote, above all others. And be it further resolved that it is the consensus of this legislative body that the application be recommended, quote unquote, above all others for issuance. And B, the agreement, whereas the Troy City Council deems it necessary to enter agreements with applicants for liquor licenses for the purpose of providing civil remedies to the City of Troy in the event licensees fail to adhere to Troy codes and ordinances. Therefore, be it resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves an agreement with Kerr Enterprises Incorporated to transfer ownership of 2009 SDD and SDM licensed business from Troy Cheese and Wine Market located at 2558-2560 East Maple, Troy, Michigan 48083, Oakland County, MLCC request number 522806, and hereby authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the document, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we approve resolutions A and B. You want to ask the same thing of the petitioners for this come forward? Are these the? Yes, please.
For the record, my name is Frank Palazzo. I'm corporate counsel for this applicant, and this is the sole shareholder of the corporation, Mrs. Hansaben Kerr. I have explained to her how thorough this community is in the regulation of its liquor licenses, and she surely understands that. She has not met with the Troy Community Coalition, but we'll do that today if somebody's available. Okay. And as such, we ask that you approve this transfer today. The Liquor Control Commission will require, in the final phases of their approval, they will give all applicants, all new licensees, 6 months to get proof of Tips or Tams training in. Beside me is her husband, LeBou Kerr, who will be working in the store also. Actually been working there the last month, learning the procedure and learning the operation of the business. They are both Troy residents. They've lived here and raised their children, and I believe they've lived here for, 7 years now. So they're surely conscious of the mores of this particular community and how this is a very responsible license if it's granted.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that because we do take it very seriously for folks that hold their liquor licenses here in the city of Troy. And so we wish them well in their business, but we also, in wishing well for their business, that it run according to what is expected with the laws, and so we do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion before we have the vote? Then Mrs. Bartholomew, the vote on A and B?
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. Good luck. Thank you. And Mrs. Kaminsky is here if you wish to meet with her maybe out in the hall for a minute. Thank you. The consent agenda is before us next. Are there any items that council would like exempted? If not, could we have a resolution to approve all of them? Is printed?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Beltramini?
resolved that all items as presented on the consent agenda are hereby approved as presented.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve all of the consent agenda items as printed. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes. Council referrals, council comments at this time. Are there any council comments to come forward?
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Beltramini?
I have a couple of things, and they are in response to some of the public comment tonight. I will make the broad statement that we have not done everything to balance the budget that was suggested to us. There are a variety of reasons for that. Some of them may be valid, some of them may not be. But there was a comment made about progressive communities and tax abatements. We too require a certain amount of investment and jobs and the like in our community for a tax abatement. And we do also have a contract where we have enforced that contract in the past when people have received a tax abatement and haven't lived up. So we already do that kind of thing. We are selling memberships and have, I think, almost forever at the Troy Family Aquatic Center. That has been a facility that the goal was to have it paid for by the users. The community center does get a subsidy from the general fund because there are many community groups that use those rooms free of charge, and it has until now been a community value to have that happen. But the subsidy has been decreasing over the years. The fitness part of the community center pays for itself. So that is true. In answer to the question, yes, Sylvan Glen did make a profit for many years and continues to do so most of the time. I came here with something else to ask and to say, though, tonight. We were asked 2 weeks ago why there wasn't a dollar sign on the tax bill. And I know that the city attorney said she'd research it. And when there wasn't anything in today's packet, I did a little research on my own, and I have found out that it is because of a computer program. As near as I understand it, there is not a field available on that program for a dollar sign. And this is a program, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lamorato, that's used by 80–85% of the taxing jurisdictions in the state. And to change it, if Troy is the requester, we kind of have to pay for that. So rather than use our tax dollars to pay for a program that works for most people and 85 jurisdictions in the state, why should they get the benefit of our questioning it? Could we put together a bunch of communities and apply pressure to the creators of this computer program? Maybe, but not in enough time for your tax bill in February. So most people know that 1114.37 means $1,114.37. It would be really nice if they came like our water bill with a dollar sign. Our water bills come with a dollar sign, I also learned, because we do those ourselves. We don't use anybody else's computer program for that. So staff will probably give a more extensive answer in a memo to follow, but that's the simple answer for those of us who just want to know. That's pretty much it. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Other council comments? Councilman Kerwin.
In part, as Councilmember Beltramini, in response to some of the comments earlier, we did hear from Pat Connolly, who's in the auto business, and remarked that the auto business recognized 24 months ago that it was time, saw the signs, he said, and began to right side. It was more than 24 months ago that we received a white paper from then City Manager Phil Nelson, and it was on sustainability, an issue of sustainability going forward. What options were presented before council in looking at the sustainability issue? I know that we still have many comments coming before us as if this were simply a budget problem, a 1-year, 2-year budget problem. Couldn't we look at this? It truly is a sustainability problem or a challenge, and it's something that we as the policymakers need to look at going forward, and that's why it was presented to us in a multi-year fashion, much as the way the county, which is touted so frequently by speakers, looks at it in a multi-year fashion. And the options currently on the website do in fact reflect those options. Look at option 1 and this is what will happen, option 2 and option 3. The reason, as I was going through today, that kept hitting me, and that's why I did appreciate support tonight from council in looking again at our boards and committees. Even without the liaison issue, which was brought up by Councilmember Howlerlack, the postings, the minutes that are retained, both draft and final, will again go to the clerk's office, which will be shrinking to just 3. 3 people who will be at the same time facing a congressional, gubernatorial election, a special election, school elections, and an August primary. I know that each year we see the goal of the city attorney, which includes visiting every single board and committee. Her office as well will continue to shrink. So it's not just, as Councilmember Beltramini brought up, we have some specifics that we've actually outsourced where there couldn't be a liaison, but more than that, for those postings and for the camera. Let's talk about our cameras. Some are filmed. Community Relations Department is slated to be gone, including that position. These are things that we need to address soon as a sitting council. We need to be far more proactive in this. And I think looking at the big picture at a total study session will benefit us all going forward. So I appreciate that. Now I did, the Troy Times, we appreciate very much, and comes to each household, and it's very good, and I see that we have a reporter there. I also encourage people this week to pick up the Troy Somerset Gazette, because I saw that it includes perspectives from the Troy School District, which was traditionally mailed home. And I haven't asked, but I'm assuming that since it was included in this sheet, the Troy Somerset Gazette, which is not delivered to your home, but one that you actually have to pick up at the corner store or somewhere else, includes the Troy School District perspectives and an opportunity for all of us to come to an event which includes the downlink from NASA. I encourage you to read it. It says, Troy selected to host downlink with NASA. Approximately 15 to 20 Troy students will have the opportunity to ask direct questions of the ISS crew, and we are invited to attend the link, which will be at Athens High School, 6:30 p.m. Has all the information in the perspectives. Also includes information about our wonderful students, the honors choir, a whole list of our National Merit semifinalists, more than 40 wonderful students, our AP scholars, our Rhodes Scholar. It's just thrilling to read this, and I don't want people to miss that. Always in the Troy Somerset Gazette, they also include information from our police patrol, our wonderful police. And I want people to be aware that in this very cold weather, that the police department has been receiving calls about dogs left in the car. Isn't that true? We have our chief here. It's become a concern, and citations are being written about that. So in this frigid weather, we wouldn't want anybody left out there, but I do applaud our citizens who are picking up the phone and letting our police know right away, but beware of that. I know it's fun to say, come on, let's go for a ride, but in this frigid weather, it's dangerous. I also want to point out, right on the front page, that we have our historic museum. We have events at the Troy Public Library this week, including job search information. So wonderful things in your Troy Somerset Gazette. And I celebrate the wonderful quality of life that we have in Troy, which includes some of these things offered in this week's magazine. So please pick it up. And Happy New Year.
I'd like to make a comment in regard the public comment section at the beginning of the meeting. I know there are concerns of citizens about whether we as a city have done enough before asking for millage. And for those folks that have not read or followed all the information on that, if they go on the city website, they can find additional information in several places, which indicate that in addition to that being on the ballot, there's the regionalization, privatization, consolidation, things that have been happening over a period of years, over a period of like 6 years where we've reduced staff. We also have had in this community several total community events. The Futures Committee, the work on the master land use plan, reports about what to do in our building department for the Zucker report, all those things. So we have been and are doing many of the things that are suggested when people come to the microphone. They are things that we will continue to do because we must look at all of those efforts in order to have a balanced budget. The millage request is only one piece of that total puzzle. And therefore, I want it very clear to citizens who take the time to watch, whether now or when it's replayed, that they get accurate information, that they look at the information that is available, and if they have, that they understand about why this is being proposed. Even with that vote, which I personally hope is a positive vote, we will still have one of the lowest millage rates of a full-service city in the area here. And there are other communities who are asking for millage or asking for, I think there's one other city, but it's asking for a bond, it's school bond, but there is another community that is asking. And that is because after they look at all the things that they can personally do as a staff all together, there still is that piece where the funds, because we have that low rate, we still need to have that revenue. And it's because of the decline in revenue, not only in residential, but in business over the period of years. And yes, as you rightly said, Councilwoman Kerwin, we were clued in several years ago, more than 24 months ago, about things were on the decline. We also have been complimented by the county, by Brooks Patterson himself and also Mr. Dada, about being proactive and being one of the first communities to come out and say this is what is happening on the decline in revenues and going forward. And so we are trying to be forthcoming in forward thinking on what we are doing. And so I want people to get that piece of the picture too as well. Are there any other council comments?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Let's see here. Well, first off, I want to say that I do believe that, when there are questions or comments in public comments, I think there probably should be some mechanism for answering them. But I don't believe that we on council need to ad nauseum rehash the same thing over and over and over again. And I think council has made up its mind and kind of put the decision into the voters as far as what they want to do with respect to mill levy adjustments, and that's in February the 23rd. We could be here without leaving this room between now and February the 23rd and not necessarily accomplish much of anything other than saying the same thing over and over again. For everything that's been mentioned up here, for every point there's a counterpoint. For example, Brooks, Patterson, and Mr. Dadow applauded us for actually not ignoring the problem, but not necessarily for the strategy or the policies that we have undertaken. That would not be appropriate at any rate, because that's a political statement. They are just applauding us for not burying our heads in the sand. I would suggest that, if possible, if we could link recent budgets as part of the discussion on the website, for lack of a better phrase, as part of the information that's presented to assist voters with making a decision. I think they would find it helpful to have a direct link as well. That's a very non-political statement that I'm making. And I think it's also non-political to say, to ask if we could just simply identify the source of documents that are on the website, whether that's been ratified by council or if that's coming from a certain department or the city manager or the city attorney's office or whoever the case might be. That kind of keeps those arguments in check. Then with respect to minutes for boards and committees, I speak once again to my experience as an appointed official prior to my election to the city council. We wrote our own minutes and simply submitted to them for the clerk for redistribution to council. That's something that can be done, something that should be considered. Cameras, it's been suggested to me, and I'm simply passing this along for food for thought. It's been suggested to me that the city council and other government filming functions be merged and combined with Community Media Network, because the question's been broached again to me, and I didn't necessarily have an answer to that of why are we having duplication of the old PEG grant monies, the education, government, and public, that's being bifurcated between the city and the Community Media Network. And I know that it's also been brought to my attention that in one of the cities to the north, they've actually contracted with CMN to provide their cable casting material. And then I think the issue with tax abatements is whether or not it should be retroactively assessed pro rata to that entity who received the tax abatement if they don't fulfill all of the obligations. I know that's been an issue here, and council has essentially taken the position that we're going to cut off the tax abatement, but we aren't necessarily going to retroactively assess it. It became a real hot potato, I know, a couple of years ago, and it was one of those items that kept coming back before council. So, but I would simply request that we try to keep our focus on the meeting and answering queries from the public, and that can be done through communication. But we have a large enough agenda to get through, and I just really hope that over the next 3 meetings that we don't continually debate what the electorate has to decide, because I think most of us have talked about most of the things we can possibly talk about in this format prior to the election.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman McGinnis?
If I can just make a brief comment. Obviously, over the last several meetings, at least since my first meeting on the 9th, our public comment has been filled with lots of discussion about the upcoming millage election. And while in some way I can relate to what Councilman Howrlack is saying in terms of hearing some of the same things that are being repeated, both I think in terms of things that you hear from city council members, from staff, but also from the public as well. And my personal opinion is this. We may see some of the same faces here that are speaking to us every meeting. We may be reiterating some of the same things in terms of facts and trying to make sure that everyone is well educated, but I think that that is what needs to be done so this issue remains kind of on the forefront of everyone's minds as we go into the election. I think for us to just put it away because we've already talked about it for however many meetings is not going to really do anyone justice. I did in some part agree with Ms. Bernardi's statements earlier today when she said in public comment that we may have different opinions, but we can at least all agree to disagree. And I think it's very important that people continue to attend the meetings and speak out. And for a lot of people that aren't here and you're not seeing on camera, they're contacting city council members, they're contacting their friends and their colleagues via email and having lively discussions about it. And I think that that is very important, and I hope that I see it continue from now until the 23rd, because whatever ends up happening in the election, I think it's important that we have this feedback from the citizens so we can decide how we're going to move forward after we get those results. So I hope that that continues.
Mayor?
Further discussion? Further council comments? Excuse me. Councilman Harnack?
I just want to thank Councilwoman McGinnis for her comments. My interest is certainly not in squelching public comment, but simply in speaking to the fact that when we have items on the agenda, we should speak to the items on the agenda. I think that council comments is probably the appropriate place for us to discuss the matters that aren't on the agenda with respect to the election or item, or respond to comments from the public. But I just wanted to make sure that when I respond to positions that I'm opposed to by my colleagues, that you understand that you understand where my sympathies lie.
Okay. Any other council comments? Councilman Slater? I saw you lean
yeah,
up.
let me just change the atmosphere if I could.
Have a closed session? Okay.
Thanks to the law department and the police department for the memo on the gentleman that wants to have his father arrested for possessing a stun gun. I hope that puts that issue to rest. This is the second time that police departments had to respond to this gentleman, and it has been investigated. It's been presented to the prosecutor's office, the law department. They've done their job, and we need to move on from that.
Okay.
Second,
there's a closed session item that's asked for. Were you going to talk about? Oh.
I was going to do that, but
Okay,
one other thing. I know Jim doesn't want me to do this, but retired police officer Jim Irvin is in the hospital. He's been there for a while. If you could just your thoughts and prayers with him, I'd appreciate it. And the only thing he's asked is give blood if you can. So if you could do that on behalf of Jim Irvin, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
And as far as the closed session, I don't see any need for a closed session on this issue.
Is there any council member that felt that we needed to meet in closed session after reviewing all the data? No, I don't see any requests for that, Mrs. Bloom, so thank you. All right, any others? Okay, then we stand in adjournment.